Well, hi there! Tree frogs are awesome. Many of them have beautiful colors. They have buckets of personality. And they do well in beautiful planted vivaria, such as this paludarium. In the past, we've covered some really cool tree frogs, such as the White's tree frog and the Amazon milk frog. They are amazing pets, but they're large. This means they need large enclosures, especially if you want to keep a group of them. And to be honest, if you just have one tree frog, most of the time what you'll have is a big pretty tank with a blob on the glass. But what if you don't have that much space? Well, that is where reed frogs come in. This adorable little cutie here is a starry night reed frog. This particular starry night reed frog comes to us from Josh's Frogs, which is a company that I could not recommend highly enough. They actually sent us 4 of these little frogs, 1 adult pair and 2 unsexed juveniles. I'll tell you more about Josh's Frogs in a bit because they're the sponsors of this video. But first, I would like to talk a little bit more about these incredible little frogs. These guys are called starry night reed frogs because they have these bright, beautiful yellow markings on a jet black background. They are ridiculously striking, beautiful little frogs. Really, with coloration, I can only liken to poison dart frogs. Of course, they're different in a lot of ways. They're much more like typical tree frogs that you would keep. They can eat larger prey. This is a little frog, but they can eat a wide diversity of little insect feeders. They're very good at swallowing things that are kind of surprisingly large. And they're just really reasonable. Dart frogs are kind of for people who are sort of maybe a little bit more advanced keepers. These are a totally reasonable, small, beautiful, personable frog for a brand new amphibian keeper to keep. And they do really well in captivity. They're breeding really well in captivity. They're really exciting. And these guys come to us from Madagascar, which is one of the coolest places in the world. So these guys, they're hanging out with aye-ayes all the time. I love aye-ayes and all the lemurs. But they're fairly new to the reptile hobby, which is kind of exciting too, because this is a totally reasonable frog that if you have them, even your reptile friends will be like, I've never seen those before. What are those? Starry night reed frogs, that's what. But we need to figure out if these bodacious little frogs are good pets, and if they're the best pet amphibians for you. To do so, we are going to score the starry night reed frog based on our 5 categories, which are handleability, care, hardiness, availability, and upfront costs. When it comes to handleability, we give the starry night reed frog a score of 1 out of 5. Obviously, you can handle these frogs. They will probably jump away from you, but they're easy to catch again. They aren't going to bite or scratch or anything like that. The main thing is just that frogs generally are not very good to handle. They can absorb toxins through their skin, they can dry out, they can become stressed. They're also tiny, so you're like Godzilla. And maybe Godzilla didn't mean to hurt you, but if he picks you up, there's just a lot that could go wrong. Now imagine if he's covered in deadly chemicals that you can absorb through your skin. It's better to avoid handling them as much as possible. And for that reason, I'm actually going to put this little starry night reed frog in with his 3 buddies back inside the paludarium for the rest of this video. Here you go, buddy. That'll work. When it comes to care, we give the starry night reed frog a score of 4 out of 5. There is nothing particularly unusual about the care for these little guys. They're basically like any full-size tree frog, just smaller. This means they eat small things, but they're ambitious feeders, so unlike dart frogs, you can give them about anything they can fit in their mouths. I've been feeding these baby dubia roaches because they're born very small, but fruit walks and baby crickets are also good feeders. And by fruit walks, I mean flightless fruit flies. Dust with calcium and vitamins. Be careful about water. Quality and availability are very important. Tap water is full of chemicals that they can absorb, again, right through their skin. So be sure that you treat any water that you use in the enclosure. Be sure that the frogs also have constant access to water. In addition to spraying regularly, a deep water bowl in which they can swim, or in this case, a paludarium, are great options. These frogs do well at, or at least very near room temperature. But they're great for bioactive enclosures with plants because they benefit from UV lighting and a warm but not too hot basking spot near the top of the enclosure, and that will probably be provided just by the UV lights or any lights you use for plants in the enclosure. When it comes to hardiness, we give the Starry Night Reed Frog a score of 4 out of 5. This is a tiny frog. As such, they are vulnerable to poor water conditions and other toxins from the environment. They can also be easily smashed. So be careful when closing doors and replacing lids, things like this. But they are widely available captive bred, and as such, they should do really well in captivity for you. When it comes to availability, we give the Starry Night Reed Frog a score of 2 out of 5. You aren't too likely to see these in pet stores. Occasionally, you might see them at reptile expos. I do suspect they'll be considerably more common in the near future, as they do breed easily in large numbers in captivity. And Josh's Frogs is working really hard to make these more available. They're breeding them in big numbers, and they sponsored this video because they wanted to get the word out about these amazing little frogs. And they are just amazing. And Josh's Frogs is as good a company as you're going to see anywhere. So please check out their website. We'll have it down in the description. They carry Starry Night Reed Frogs, neon day geckos, and so much more. Also all the stuff that you'll need to set these animals upright. And there's a discount code in the description below, which will save you some money on these or anything else they carry. Which brings us to upfront costs. When it comes to upfront costs, we give the Starry Night Reed Frog a score of 4 out of 5. Honestly, if you get just one, I'd give it a 5 out of 5. But honestly, that kind of defeats the purpose of getting little micro frogs. These aren't expensive, but if you buy 4 or 5, the cost will add up. Of course, if you get them from Josh's Frogs, which you should, then you can use the discount code that we have down in the description, and that will save you some cash. Everything else about these frogs will be reasonable. The enclosure that you need is not huge or expensive. You could create a paludarium, in which case you'll need a pump and the other supplies we use for our build of this paludarium, which you can see right there. But you can even get away with just having a deep water bowl. You'll need a misting bottle, some fake or I would recommend real plants, water conditioner, substrate, moss, any other cage decorations you might want. And again, all of this stuff can be ordered straight from Josh's Frogs, so you can use that code here too. It really won't be that expensive. And for all these reasons, we give the Starry Night Reed Frog an overall score of 3 out of 5. And keep in mind that much of the reasons behind that 3 out of 5 are that they're not really for handling and they're not easy to find unless you get them from Josh's Frogs, which you totally should. I'm just giving you guys a super exciting little update. As you can see, our enclosure is doing terribly, and the reason it's doing so terribly is because I've turned the water feature off because, and I can't believe this because we've only had it for a couple of weeks, but it is full of tadpoles. If what you want is a group of cute, personable, beautiful micro frogs that are a bit easier to care for than dart frogs, then the Starry Night Reed Frog might be the perfect pet amphibian for you. As always, like and subscribe, and we hope to see you real soon.
You can just kiss that face. You were a little really bigger.
Turns into a tiny prince.
Sorry. I have a frog in my throat.
Poor thing.
It's just better to avoid handling them as much as possible. And actually, for this reason, I'm going to put this little Starry Night Reed Frog back in the enclosure. Here you go, buddy. That'll work. Yeah, if you could stay on the front glass, that'd be amazing. Either kind of a or a